Hi guys, it's Phil
And Liam
from Die Hard on a Blank, and we're excited to talk to you about a brand new podcast we're launching called 48 Hours of Buddy Movies.
That's right, folks. 48-hour-long
approximately
episodes exploring 48 different buddy movies, beginning with the original classic that started it all, Walter Hill's 1982 masterpiece, 48 Hours, starring Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy.
And just like Die Hard on a Blank, our new show will explore the influence of 48 Hours on the action genre, one buddy movie at a time.
We'll be covering iconic franchises such as the Beverly Hills Cop movies, the Stakeout movies, the Bad Boys movies, classics of the genre like Running Scared,
Hyams Hive Rise Up,
Midnight Run, Red Heat, Tango and Cash, The Hard Way,
plus tough thrillers such as To Live and Die in LA, Black Rain, Point Break, Training Day, and The Way of the Gun.
As well as a few wild cards that you might not expect, such as RoboCop, Alien Nation, and, of course, Phil's favorite,
Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man.
So if you're a fan of two buddies talking buddy movies,
then 48 Hours of Buddy Movies is for you.
Visit patreon.com/48 Hours of Buddy Movies to subscribe for the price of 1 cup of coffee a month.
See you in the squad car.
Or walking to the squad car, mildly irritated that we've been paired off.
Wherever. That's patreon.com/48 Hours of Buddy Movies to subscribe.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Out here, it's not only the amazing views, but the way time stretches out a little longer. How laughter bellows louder among friends, and how the breeze hits just right at the summit. With All Trails, you can discover and experience the best of nature with over 450,000 trails worldwide and navigation right at your fingertips. Find your outside with All Trails. Download the free app today and find your next outdoor adventure.
This is Paige, the co-host of Giggly Squad. I use Uber Eats for everything, and I feel like people forget that you can truly order anything, especially living in New York City. It's why I love it. You can get Chinese food at any time of night, but it's not just for food. I order from CVS all the time. I'm always ordering from the grocery store. If a friend stops over, I have to order champagne. I also have this thing that whenever I travel, if I'm ever in a hotel room, I never feel like I'm missing something because I'll just Uber Eats it. The amount of times I've had to Uber Eats hair items like hairspray, deodorant, you name it, I've ordered it on Uber Eats. You can get grocery, alcohol, everyday essentials in addition to restaurants and food you love. So in other words, get almost anything with Uber Eats. Order now. For alcohol, you must be legal drinking age. Please enjoy responsibly. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Welcome to Die Hard on a Blank, the podcast where we explore the influence of Die Hard on action cinema, one action movie at a time. I'm Philip Gawthorne, and with me as always is Liam Billingham, and today's film is Chill Factor.
It's Die Hard on an ice cream truck.
Yay! Give the people what they want.
I never thought would be said in the world, and yet we have it here.
One of the best Die Hard on a Blank.
Yeah, from
concepts.
the very beginning of this show, just the people clamoring for us to talk about 1999's Chill Factor.
Chill Factor heads, they're out there.
They're out
Believe
there.
it or not, they
ice
are
cream
out
truck
there.
heads. The ice cream truck people, they love this movie. We're very lucky though, because we have. Not only do we have a great guest for this show, we have a guest who happens to be in the city of Missoula, Montana, where this film takes place. It's Matt Strohl, everybody. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
I'm very excited to be here.
We're really excited to have you. So very quickly, we're really happy you're here because you are a professor at the University of Montana in the philosophy department. Is that correct?
That is correct. I do ancient Greek philosophy and aesthetics and philosophy of art.
I first heard you on an episode of our mutual friend Justin and Laura Koo's podcast, Cows in the Field, talking about Tokyo Drift. And it kind of blew my mind. And I have since read your books, It's Okay to Love Bad Movies and Hard to Watch. And they're both, for folks listening to the show, I think that these books are like, absolutely, you must pick these up, revelations about thinking about how we watch the things that we watch.
Oh, amazing. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and to me, that's like really important right now because we all have limited amounts of time, and sometimes you want to, sometimes yesterday I watched both Chill Factor and saw a Werner Herzog movie. And so sometimes you have to pair the high with the low of the form. And I think we wanted to do that with our choice of guest here, someone who thinks deeply about art, talking about a movie that takes place mostly on an ice cream truck.
What I would love to do, just to sort of set the table for our chat, is could you tell us concisely, on a macro level, what your sort of thesis is? What's the thesis behind the book?
Sure. So the Bad Movies book, the sort of question that frames it is what, like, people say things all the time, like it's so bad it's good, or it's bad but in a good way, or I love it because it's bad, right? And there's something superficially paradoxical about that way of framing it, right? It's like normally things by getting bad don't eventually loop around and become good. That's not normally how bad works. They're normally you just sort of keep going in that direction, and good is the other way, right? So the basic answer I give to the question is that we have to think of bad and good as having different meanings. They're bad and good in different ways, right? And I think that there are sort of two distinct meanings that this saying "so bad it's good" has, depending on the context. So one meaning is the sort of Mystery Science Theater 3000 kind of type meaning, which is so bad they're good means they're bad in the aesthetic sense. They're bad movies. They're like they have disvalue as art, which makes them good for a laugh. They're good to make fun of. They're good fodder for jokes. And then the other meaning for this saying would be like the way that, say, you and I are more likely to use it, which is they're bad, but the way in which they're bad is that they like don't adhere to certain conventions. They don't follow the rules. They don't sort of jump through the hoops that movies are supposed to jump through successfully. And in virtue of that, they're aesthetically good. They're good movies. Like something like, let's say Freddy Got Fingered is one of my favorite examples. It's a movie that deliberately sort of like doesn't do what it's supposed to. It's actively disdainful of the relevant standards. And that makes it good. That makes it interesting.
Interesting. So this will be what we can kind of treat today as, if you like, as a little bit of a case study, taking this movie of Chill Factor, and we can apply some of your thinking to it as we kind of break it down. So why don't we start by telling us your personal history with this film? Did you see it when it came out? Did you rent it? Had you only seen it recently? Starting with your good self, Matt.
Sure. I'm surprised to say that I saw it for the first time yesterday. I mean, this is the kind of thing I normally don't let slide past me, but
slip past you like ice cream on a cone.
Yeah, I think it has to do. So it came out in 1999. That was the year I graduated high school, went to college. I think I had other things going on. I don't think that was like a year where I where I was, I mean, and also I was way more of a snob back then. I wasn't necessarily making sure I saw every single Die Hard scenario of Thriller. Whereas now I don't miss that kind of thing. So yeah, so I don't think I saw it until yesterday, my first time.
And what would be your sort of top line thought on it as sort of a connoisseur of bad cinema? Did you like this? Did you enjoy the watch, or what was your feeling about it?
It was delightful. I mean, I think it's very good. If you're into this sort of category of Die Hard type action movies, there's plenty to chew on. But beyond that, the movie is set in Montana, and the climax takes place allegedly in Missoula, where I live. And I watched it with my wife, who's from Montana, and we had a hell of a good time with like all the ridiculous Montana geography in the movie. We could talk about that a little bit, but like it's filmed in Utah. It looks absolutely nothing like Montana.
Yeah.
Like,
Utah,
so why set it in Montana? Like, what's the difference?
Right.
Does it have to do with Skeet Ulrich's football background? Is that why? That's what I was curious.
What did they say? Did he went to like the Grizzly, or how specific are they? I forget.
I think they're pretty specific, but of course I can't remember anymore exactly what they said.
So in Montana, there's like a historic football rivalry between Bozeman and Missoula, the Cats and the Grizz. But like the movie is plainly like, if we were trying to figure out where it could be that would make sense, and we arrived at like it has to be up in the like Sealy Swan Valley. So it's the only way it makes sense, because there's a point where you go one way to go to Helena and Billings, and you go the other way to go to Missoula. There's like a fork in the road, and there's like not much between Missoula and Helena. There's like not many places you could be, and in fact, if you're between Missoula and Helena, you're like within an hour of Missoula. Whereas in the movie, it's like they're like a whole day's voyage.
Wow.
So the geography was like hard to make sense of, but we were trying to position like where could they be that makes sense? What river could this be that they're traveling down? It has to be the Black.
Only thing in this movie that doesn't make sense. I mean, other than that, it's like the verse and exchanges.
It still doesn't make sense, because if you were going to go to Helena, if you were going to go the direction of Helena, that's definitely not the way to go to Billings. And the sign is like Helena and Billings, right? So the geography definitely does not make sense. But it was very funny. It was very entertaining for us to try to like parse out what they could have been thinking. Like, did they look at a map of Montana at any point, right? Or was this just kind of all tossed off? Like, we'll just assume that people will accept.
I don't think they looked at the script at any point, let alone
you're so harsh.
let alone a map.
Yeah.
Liam, did you have any history with this one?
Beyond, so I've talked about this before, but in 1999 I was working at a video store called the Video Scene in my hometown, Duxbury, Massachusetts. And I so clearly remember this sitting on the shelf. There were 2 copies of it. That's all the amount they ordered, right? 2 copies
Gathering
of it.
dust.
Next to like 20 copies of The Mummy.
Right, okay.
Because they came out around the same time. So I have like a very strong knowledge of this movie. But like our guest, I saw this film for the first time yesterday on Tubi, which is where it should live. They're on TBS. And I'm with Matt mostly. I had a good time watching it. I don't think this is the greatest piece of Die Hard on a blank cinema ever made, but like, we have this thing we say that we attribute to Corey Atad, who once said that there's a movie that's a 5-star, 3-star. And I think this is like a 3-star, 1-star movie. So it's like a perfect 2-star movie is my feeling about this motion picture. I don't regret watching it, but I certainly don't think it's like a very good movie. Phil, I know you love it.
Yeah, I'm going to be... we'll get into a wider conversation about... I have no wish, and this is why I'm really excited to have you on, Matt, to sort of defend this film. I have no wish to be mean and snarky about movies. Genuinely, because I really do feel that any film that gets made is a miracle, in its own right, and that no one goes into these things almost always, or with like bad intentions, right? There are sort of exceptions, and something like Speed 2, which had all the resources and money to succeed, and made all the wrong choices at every single stage of the process. It's like a different conversation, right? Like that had the chance to be great and just like completely, shat the bed, right? That's a different thing. And we talked about other movies like Under Siege 2, which I don't think is a great movie, but Eric Bogosian is in it, and he is great, and that makes it interesting. And we can always find something positive to say. And I have no desire to sort of, throw rotten vegetables from the tube seats, right?
That caveat aside.
That said, I fucking hate this movie and it sucks. No, I watched it recently. I'd never seen it. It's weird. It's kind of weird that I didn't watch it, actually, because it's such a rental movie.
Oh, totally.
And so I only, like you guys, it's kind of interesting that none of us had seen it. That does say something about how we're all interested in these kind of films. We're all probably quite open-minded and can get something out of even a 2-star movie if there's good people in it or the idea is interesting or whatever. And none of us bothered to watch it for 26 years.
Well, it's also been kind of consigned to the dustbin of movie history, right?
Yeah.
Not many people. no one on Twitter has been like, actually, Chill Factor is good. Maybe we'll kickstart that conversation. I mean, it feels like one of those movies that could have that.
This
But I
isn't
do feel
Drop
like it's
Zone, though. You know what I mean? Like where it was
No,
like
it's
that was
not
a
Drop
movie
Zone.
that was sort of considered to be a kind of considered wrongly, in my view, to be like a mediocre programmer, and now people are going like are championing it in a massive way, and it just had this huge new release. This isn't that.
Okay.
And
Yeah, that's true.
So I only saw it for the first time, and candidly, I thought it was quite poor. However, I want to be, as with every film that we cover, give it a fair shake, give it a fair trial, not just immediately leap to a knee-jerk, whatever the prevailing winds are culturally about a movie. I always like to give it its day in court. So we will intend to do that today. Let's put it in a bit of context with some fast facts for when this movie came out. So it was directed by Hugh Johnson, who we'll talk about a little bit. Written by Drew Gitlin and Mike Cheetah, produced by James G. Robinson, pretty big heavyweight producer. It stars Cuba Gooding Jr., Skeet Ulrich, Peter Firth, and David Paymer. Distributed by Warner Brothers and released on September 1st, 1999. The budget information is, there's a giant
crazy
leap between what is listed on Wikipedia, which is budget between 34 to 70 million. Bit of
a lot of expensive ice cream.
A bit of a difference there. And the box office, even if it was at the low end of 30, let's assume it was 34 million, which seems about right.
Yeah.
Box office 11.8 million. So even if it was at the lowest end of that, it was a significant financial and critical failure. Hence it being, not one that many people have necessarily seen.
Could we say that audiences were chill on this movie?
Oh boy! I'm here for the puns. I am here for. Let's just make
You're
sure
British.
that they're.
It's a huge part of your culture.
It is. It's our contribution to culture. Let's get into the section why we're covering it on this show in a subsection that we like to call
Die Hard DNA. See, the radio DJ thing, Matt. This is what we're talking about. It's like,
I think we both have that slight feeling because we're talking to an actual professor.
Yeah.
I think we both feel like the naughty kids have to sort of apologize to the
Matt seems like a pretty cool professor.
I seem to have liked this terrible movie the best of the three of us, so I think we're on equal footing.
Good.
I just like that you're like tossing a baseball in the air and you're like, chill factor. What does it mean? Like it's got that feeling to it. Oh.
So why we're covering it on this show? Let's pin down some of the Die Hard DNA. There's a bunch of other movies in there as well. But at its core, we've got two affable, blue-collar, everyman strangers, one white, one black, as in John McClane and Al Powell, who must work together to defuse a major crisis involving trigger-happy mercenaries looking to pull off an extremely risky heist. The authorities in both films are slow to respond and borderline inept. There's a pair of useless dickhead cops who get in the way and complicate things, as in the FBI agent Johnson's. The villain is played by a distinguished British thespian and star of stage and screen. Events culminate with an aggressive military helicopter assault and a massive explosion. The mercenaries group involves a bespectacled hacker. Those were some of the things that I caught, but according to the lab results...
It sounds like the greatest movie ever made when you put it this way.
And I think the premise is really fun, and we'll get into that when we do Anatomy of an Action movie. But broadly, I would say this is a combination of Die Hard, Speed, and The Rock.
Yes.
Is there anything? Would you guys have any thoughts on like what it's? This is a film, funnily enough, about like a scientific concoction. What else? What are the sort of other? Are there any other ingredients going on in this movie, or anything that spoke to you about its DNA from Die Hard and other related action movies?
I'll say that I spent the entire time, especially in the second half, thinking about how much of a Rock ripoff this is. Like disgruntled, like lifelong military general, is done an injustice or has in the loss of his men and decides to get revenge by stealing a colorful blue ball that like melts your skin off. Like it's actually kind of crazy how much it like steals, including the way he looks and the way he's dressed, right?
Yeah.
Like it's distracting. And look, as we all know, I love The Rock. I love The Rock. I think it is a top tier action film. When we did our episode with Tapley on 50 Miles Per Hour, I think it was my number one action movie of the 90s. Like,
I think it was mine too, wasn't it? Yeah.
I don't know if I feel that, but like, so I was very distracted by that element. And I gotta say, like, they couldn't have picked the temperature 48 degrees. Like, they had to do 50. Like, it's just, when you're pointing at the greatest achievements of the genre in the decade that you're in, I don't think you're doing yourself.
What do you mean by that? What do you
Speed.
mean? Oh, by the 50 mile per hour.
50 miles per hour and 50
Well, that's what I was
degrees.
pitching to Tapley, is there needs to be a sequel to his podcast. It's called 50 Degrees,
And
which
it's
is a 50 episode breakdown of Chill Factor. Like, it's right there. It's low-hanging fruit. What about you? What about you, Matt? Do you have any sort of thoughts on how this connects to Die Hard, Speed, or the films of its ilk?
Well, I was going to add, another movie that is obviously in the background here is A River Runs Through It, right? Especially the idea. So in River Runs Through It, there's this there's this early part in the movie where they introduce the idea of shadow casting, right? Which is like where you don't actually let the fly touch the water. You have it just above the water, and the fish jumps out of the water and grabs it. And then at the sort of climax of the movie, there's a successful shadow cast, right? And in this, we get a similar kind of narrative structure where at the beginning of the movie, the Doc, what's his name?
David Paymer,
Doc Long.
Doc Long, yeah.
So Doc Long like gives some fly fishing wisdom to Skeet Ulrich, which is like like the trout is the perfect predator. It's like he says, how can we defeat the trout? Like, how can we hope to defeat the trout, right? And the idea is you have to tie a fly that is so convincing that it triggers the trout's like predatory strike instinct, and then the predator becomes the prey, right? And that like at the climactic moment in the movie, he's like in the gas station and he's like, what kind of fly can I tie, right? Like, and then he makes the fake bomb, and that's how he learns. So it's like there's like a similar structure where we get like a fly fishing insight that then becomes like like central to the climax of the movie. So
what an amazing pull! I would never have even made that
interns
connection.
just handed me a piece of paper, and it does say 7% River Runs Through It DNA. So kudos.
Only
you're
7.
Right,
I would
you're
figure
right
it'd be
on.
higher. Man, those interns are shrewd.
Yeah, but it's being chewed up by Die Hard, Speed, and The Rock. But
right.
There's just enough in there. Yeah.
I will say that makes it feel like there's a little bit of the River Wild in this movie as well, because this is, there's the boat set sequence, but also just kind of the milieu of like being in the lake and being, fly fishing and all these things, the outsider survival in remote parts of nature.
Bit of breakdown as well.
And you can't overstate this. Like, fly fishing was not very popular until A River Runs Through It. And like that became the thing that Montana was associated with after that. That, like, especially in the 90s. This was like 1993, 1994, the movie came out. So like at that time, like that's the only reason to set this movie in Montana. Like, I'm wondering that, like, why set it like that? Well, the answer is because of the fly fishing connection. Right? And
the very obvious contrivance in the screenplay. That it sets up.
They were like, we are hell-bent on this theme being integral to this story.
Guys,
so it has to be set in Montana.
Chekhov's lure, guys? A lure introduced early in the movie has to come back later in the movie?
Well, let's dig into all this in a bit more detail with Anatomy of an Action Movie after this quick break.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
We all belong outside. We're drawn to nature, whether it's the recorded sounds of the ocean we doze off to, or the succulents that adorn our homes. Nature makes all of our lives, well, better. Despite all this, we often go about our busy lives removed from it. But the outdoors is closer than we realize. With All Trails, you can discover trails nearby and explore confidently. With offline maps and on-trail navigation, download the free app today.
And we're back with our next section of the show, Anatomy of an Action Movie, where we explore the tenets.
We live in a twilight world.
And there are no friends at dusk.
Yes!
Yes!
That's how you know you're in the right place.
This is so good for me, a Tenet head and Phil is too, but a lot of people will just be like, that movie sucks, move on. And I'm a huge fan. We're huge fans of that movie. So
as a professor of philosophy, what are your just top line feelings about Tenet?
Oh, well, so it's interesting for me because I've been like a long time Christopher Nolan naysayer. It's like a part of my personality, right? Because like I grew, I was like, when The Dark Knight came out, I was like trying to position myself like, I'm a little more sophisticated. I know you all like that, but I have better taste than that. And so it's like, when Tenet came out, I watched it. I'm like, honestly, that was super weird and I kind of liked it. Then I watched it again and I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. Then I watched it again and I was like, okay, I kind of love this. And now I'm on like, yeah. So now I've had to completely like reconfigure my personality and be like, I actually like Christopher Nolan, and all that time I was being a big jerk,
I'll just say very quickly that my two top Christopher Nolan movies now are Tenet and The Dark Knight Rises.
Totally, no, I agree.
So
I love The Dark Knight Rises. Totally agree.
Hell yeah,
but it's funny because part of what got me to give it a good chance is that this friend of mine, his name is Alessandro Torza. He's like a philosophy guy who was like posting on social media about how rigorous the theory of time travel in Tenet really is, and like how like deeply Nolan does understand the metaphysics of time travel, and like that. So that got me thinking about it, and like I started watching and I started realizing that like although these chase scenes are so like initially they feel so stupid, where it's like, oh, someone's going backwards, someone's going forwards, like have we flipped this air that we're breathing or not through the time reverser? I started to realize that like actually this is extremely meticulous, and and like it is perhaps the greatest puzzle film ever made, in the sense of like I've seen it like how many times, and I still like every time I watch it I'm like, wait, what's going on? Right?
Well, the thing about that movie is that there's never enough times you can see it. Okay, Phil, bring us back to Chill Factor. Bring us back. Bring it back.
All right. Well, we are back into talking about Chill Factor then. So first tenet of Anatomy of an Action Movie is the premise. And the premise of this movie is as follows. So when an experimental military chemical weapon nicknamed Elvis accidentally falls into civilian hands, a hapless ice cream truck driver, played by Cuba Gooding Jr., and a down-on-his-luck diner cook, played by Skeet Ulrich, team up to keep it away from the ruthless mercenaries who are trying to steal it. The catch is that if Elvis heats above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, it will detonate with catastrophic force, forcing the unlikely duo to outrun the bad guys and keep the temperature under that threshold, all while attempting to safely deliver the precarious device to a military facility. Now, I will say, I think that's a great premise.
Great premise.
Great premise. And it also says, it's playful, it's fun, it's high concept. And I'm like, yes, that's such a fun idea. The issue is, like, for me, is how that premise is executed. And one of the big problems I have with it is that premise doesn't kick in until 40 minutes into the film and is then abandoned after 20 minutes. Like, it's like, I thought that's the movie we were watching. Was like, great, this is Speed. Everything's a ripoff of something else. Fine. This is a ripoff of Speed, but instead of the bomb going below 50 miles per hour, it's going below 50 degrees. Great. I'm on board. Fun idea. You're already saying the kind of movie you're having by the fact that it's an ice cream truck driver. But what I was also disappointed by was, like, it's not an ice cream truck per se. It's an ice cream delivery truck.
That's
which
a good
is so
point.
much more boring.
Should we start the episode over again so I can say it's Die Hard and an ice cream delivery truck?
Everybody, like, ice cream trucks make people happy. There's something about that that's like Americana or around the world. Like, when the sound of an ice cream truck is fun, and it's like Pavlovian response. It makes you happy to hear or see an ice cream truck. And for them to just, like, fumble the ball on that is like, really, it's just, it could have been so much more fun and endearing. So I think it's such a great premise, but they don't, execute it in the way, like, Speed is an interesting one because it's sort of divided into these three. It's perfect act structure. Act 1 is elevator, Act 2 is the bus, Act 3 is the train. But this is just like, it spends so long setting up the backstory of the villain, which is the majority of the first act. I mean, that takes ages. And it's quite, to be fair, it's quite interesting and it's quite unusual and weird on that island and everything.
Yeah.
But then the film is so kind of imbalanced structurally. And then also because of that, the tone. You know, the tone of this film, you'd be amazed at how many directors, and this was a first-time director who came from cinematographer and of some note, and shot G.I. Jane and worked with Ridley, like going back to The Duelist. He didn't shoot The Duelist, but he was on the camera team. So, you know, a pedigreed shooter for sure. But it's amazing to me how many directors don't understand tone. And the tone of this film it's like 1 minute, because I assume from this premise, this is a PG-13. This has to be a PG-13.
Yeah, it's an ice cream movie.
It's an ice cream truck movie, for crying out loud. Like, it's a silly, but then there's like profanity for no reason, you know, and like violence. And then at the end, there's like Cronenbergian body horror when the, spoiler alert, the villain basically gets destroyed at point blank range by the chemical weapon. It's like, what, you know, just pick a lane, pick a tone and stick to it. So for me, it was just a sort of, I was genuinely looking forward to this. I had no real preconceptions. I thought this is probably going to be silly fun. I'm pretty easy to please with a movie that was made in this era. And it was just such a botched job of such a fun idea. Those are my initial thoughts. Liam, why don't you tell me your thoughts, and then we'll get Matt to like really get under the hood with apply his philosophical approach to this film.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think this is like a 2-star movie. I do think it has a tone problem. I agree with that. We've talked before, you know, our previous episode was on Arlington Road, which is a movie I think also that has a tone problem in that it's hysterical when it should actually be a little more serious. And again, this might be another case of a movie where the Die Hard DNA is like a little too pronounced. Like, maybe, you know, like there's the Die Hard on a concept, and then there's the way that you like the tone of that movie is transferred into this movie. And like Die Hard is a serious movie, but it's also quite a fun and funny movie. And I don't think this movie locates the fun. Part of that, there is an attempt to find some humor in this is a buddy movie, right? We can definitely categorize this
as 48 hours DNA.
48 DNA in this movie. And like Cuba Gooding is doing his best to find humor in those lines, but I don't think the screenplay does him any
He's got nothing
favors.
to work with.
And I just think that like the Ulrich performance is like a little too muted. So like, yeah, to me, it's just a little derivative, but I will say that like, if I were 27 and hungover on a Sunday afternoon and this came on TNT with commercials, I would be like very happy to just like while the hours away watching it, right? So, you know, it has its place, but I do think that like to back up your point, Phil, I think it's a tonal problem, and I just think the movie struggles with its performances and what. Yeah, I mean that's just where I am. I didn't have a terrible time watching it, but I don't think it's a particularly good movie. But I can see how people find joy in it.
Yeah, I mean, I have more specifics, but I don't want to hog the mic here. I want to give Matt a chance to chime in. You know, how do you feel about the movie? Two questions for you, really. First of all, your general thoughts on the movie, and then how it might apply to your, the philosophy that you're espousing in your work about why and how we should love bad movies.
Absolutely. Again, to quote Doc Long, how can we ever hope to win against the trout? Right? I wrote that down. I wrote it down verbatim. As well, I think that's a great quote. I'm a fly fisherman. I'm a fly fisherman in Montana, so it really.
Wow! Really,
I'm gonna just give myself a little credit for getting Matt on this episode because we found ways to bring him in so many. It's amazing. Yeah,
right. And I like the movie. I think better than both of you did. And in part, because I thought some of the things that you're pointing out in a critical way are exactly the things that I liked about it. So it's a perfect fit. Yes, it's bad in one sense. I know what you mean by bad. I know why you would say these things are bad, and in a way you're right. Right. But I think that they're bad in a way that's ultimately pretty fun and kind of interesting. Not all that interesting, to be honest, but like kind of interesting and very fun, I would say. So I the tonal swings, I felt that because when I was like trying to convince my wife, Angela, who like, we're going to watch Chill Factor tonight. I'm going on this awesome podcast. You know, like I have no choice that you don't
Honey,
get any
no
say.
Tenet tonight.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
We can't do it.
Well, it's funny because what she's really been campaigning to watch lately are Eric Romer movies. She wants to watch like Pauline at the Beach, and I'm like, we're not watching.
Need to.
My like favorite filmmaker of all time. I'm obsessed with Eric Romer. Yeah, he's
I'm like, we're not watching Pauline at the Beach. We're watching Chill Factor with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Skeet Ulrich.
Oh my god.
So
that's how I feel. I'm like, I want to watch Romer movies. Anyway,
right. When I Googled it to like tell her what it's about or whatever, the Wikipedia article starts with it's a buddy comedy, right? And then within the first 5 minutes of the movie, there's like people are having their skin melted off by radiation, and like everybody dies on the whole island, and it's like, you know, it's like really like quite upsetting.
Laugh a minute stuff, right?
Right, exactly. She's like buddy comedy, eh? Right. But like you could argue, right? One could argue that like the way that the movie swings in tone so abruptly and so unevenly gives it a very different vibe from like other movies of this type from the era, right? Like in other words, generally the movies that are going that they're going to cast Cuba Gooding Jr. There's a point where they announce, it's really funny because I live in Missoula. Let me be clear, there are like the black population of Missoula is like 0.1%, and in the beginning it's like Cuba Gooding Jr. It's like he's called the prodigal son of Missoula. He's like the sort of arch Missoulian. I'm like, man, I wish Cuba Gooding Jr. lived in Missoula. It is not as diverse as it is presented in the film. So the way that the movie swings from like from this kind of nuclear winter to like Cuba Gooding Jr. making the prodigal son of Missoula, he stole an ice cream truck, and then back to the nuclear winter again, right? I think there's something to be said for the way in which that kind of disregard for expectations about tonal continuity ends up making the movie surprising in certain ways, and you're like what am I watching right now? So it's not, again, I wouldn't exaggerate it. I wouldn't like, there are many better examples of Die Hard on a Blank movies from this example, even in terms of good bad from this period. There are many examples that are more interesting, but like again, like for me, I had fun with the way that it's like I have no idea where this is going. I have no idea like what kind of like tonal gyrations we're going to go through here, right? And the movie really keeps you up.
Yeah,
it really
that's
keeps
really
you
interesting.
It keeps you off guard in that way, right? And then at the same time, so like Skeet Ulrich, right? The setup of the movie, and again, like I'm partly looking at this. I hate to be the guy who's like, oh, I have local knowledge of this place, or people that watch, or no, sorry. What I'm saying is like there's like a way people watch movies that I don't like, which is like they'll watch like Vertical Limit and they'll be like, that's not how mountain climbing works, and they'll be like, the movie is bad because it doesn't like accurately portray like the details of this thing that I know a lot about, right? But I think in this is a case where like, you know, like being somebody who fly fishes a lot, and like the movie kind of makes a big deal about fly fishing, that for me it sort of added one thing, which is if you watch, so there's Doc Long and then there's Skeet Ulrich, Paymer and Ulrich, and Doc Long actually can fly cast, right? At the beginning of the movie, he's like he catches a fish, and Doc Long actually does like what he's doing is like how you would actually approximately do it. Whereas when Skeet Ulrich goes to cast, it's like he obviously nobody taught him how to fly cast before they filmed this scene. He just grabbed the fly rod and just did something that seemed right, and it's like it's not how you cast a fly rod. He does it totally wrong, right? And then what he says to Doc Long is like, I'm doing the same thing you're doing, but you're catching more fish. Why is it? But I can see like, no, you're not. You have no idea how to fly fish, and this other guy does, right? And that becomes an interesting sort of glimpse into his character, right? Where he's this sort of overconfident high school football hero, right? Like has this sort of false idea of himself, himself. And over the course of the movie, there's like a kind of almost like a building, like he becomes the man that he imagines himself as by dealing with this crisis, right? So you get this kind of character, and he ultimately comes to understand fly fishing. Again, that's like crucial. That's like so for me that like the way that integration of fly fishing, where it's like the way that he actually defeats the terrorist is by learning the lesson of fly fishing that Paymer was trying to teach him at the beginning. For me, that was so satisfying.
Actually pretty important for the the film's what it's at least striving for.
I think so. Yeah. And I said that to Angela when we were watching it. I'm like, the climax, I think as soon as we had that scene at the beginning where he tells him that, I'm like, the climax of the movie, he's going to apply this lesson, and that's going to be and I said this, I'm not trying to be like, oh, I know what's going to happen. I'm saying I'm looking forward to it, right? It's going to be awesome when that happens.
It really is like Chekhov's lure, to that point. Matt, you said something really been interesting, and I've been thinking about this for like a few weeks now. So David Cronenberg, the God, was recently on Mark Maron, and he was talking about the criticism of his new movie. And one of the criticisms, I haven't seen the film yet, I'm dying to, but one of the criticisms of the film was that like it doesn't resolve. It just kind of like goes off into this film of paranoia and conspiracy theory and whatever.
It's incredibly stupid criticism. But
yeah, well, what he says is he's like, what is everyone looking for? The well-made Victorian play? And that kind of like blew my mind, because I do think that's what most people look for in a piece of art, right? Like the Swiss watch, the thing that works really, really well and like leads to a logical conclusion and ties up all the loose ends and does all these things. You in your book, A Hard to Watch, you talk a lot about a movie that's really personally important to me, Jean Dielman, Chantal Akerman's film. She was my film school professor. And for me, it was like...
Oh, no shit. Wow.
Yeah, it was like, that movie is 3 hours and 20 minutes long, and it's mostly watching a person do something. But to me, that's like a Swiss watch of a movie. And I think to this point, though, like, chill factor, what makes it interesting for you, at least, is that it isn't a Swiss watch. It's kind of it sort of does the Swiss watch thing. It really does it with the fly fishing moment, but it has these tonal shifts that Phil pointed out that like don't make sense, but to some extent that like makes it more interesting from a certain perspective.
Yeah, because it makes it, it's like sort of unlike other examples. And then so you get this, as a viewer, you have this tension between your expectations and what you're watching. And again, there's like two different ways you could go with that, right? There's the I have my checklist, and you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to do this, right? So I think of that as like the checklist approach to evaluating movies. And I think like, a lot of people watch movies like that. Like, it's like, I always think of like, when I talk to other philosophy academics, and I might be telling them I like this movie that they just think is presumptively bad, like they think there's no way it could be good, and they'll say something like, but it has bad writing, right? And it's like, I'm like, oh, like, you can just know that, you can just sort of hear listen to the dialogue. I guess that's what they're thinking of, usually the dialogue when they say writing, right? Like listening to the dialogue or like the plot, like the way the plot is structured, and you can just sort of directly infer from that the movie is bad. But like, isn't there a possibility that your way of thinking about it is too limited, that like you have narrow expectations, right? It's understandable why you have expectations, because these are the conventions that other movies follow, right? But then you're taking those conventions and you're applying them here when maybe this movie is trying to do something different, or maybe this movie doesn't care about those conventions, maybe right?
Or it's its own stew. It's its own mix of them. Its own thing.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So the way that people will treat that as though it's mandatory, as though it's like, you're the judge of the figure skating competition, and like you didn't land the triple axel, or like you left a little splash on your dive or whatever as a diving. Yeah. There's the idea that there are these objective criteria that always apply, and it's just false. It's just, that's not, I mean, there are examples where like a genre movie like fails to meet some expectation of the genre, and that is a problem. Like that does happen, but it's not the case that like automatically failing to follow some certain rules automatically an aesthetic demerit. You got to think about how and why it breaks that rule, and how that integrates into the whole, and how, is it really a bad thing in this case, or might there be a way of looking at it where it's actually interesting or appealing?
Well, I want to sort of give you an opportunity to defend this thesis by giving you, I think, the things that I had a specific problem with. And I tend to see things through the lens of, as a screenwriter, which does involve a lot of, you're using the Swiss watch analogy, and we've said how Die Hard is a Swiss watch. Screenwriting involves a lot of mechanisms, right? There's a lot of, machinery and moving parts that need to kind of work together and connect, and cogs that need to turn in conjunction with each other for a story to work perfectly. But I do also agree with you that, like, sometimes a film's flaws and imperfections are what you actually love about it. And just a very quick sidebar, I haven't announced this, but I'm going to be going on Cows in the Field to talk about Cobra.
Yes!
Yes! Oh, wow, yeah. That's awesome.
A movie that I love. That is.
Do you think Deadline's
so
going to pick
flawed.
this up? Do you think Deadline's going to publish a story about this when this comes out?
I mean, that is going to be a very interesting conversation to this exact point where I'm like, this is a kind of critically indefensible movie, but I absolutely love this movie at the same time, right? Now, but with this film, with Chill Factor, here are some of my specific issues. So I'm interested to see, if you can apply your thesis perhaps in its defense, because it's interesting what you're saying, about tone. For me, tonal inconsistency is something that really rankles me. But for you're saying, but that's actually part of the fun, because it keeps it fresh and it keeps you off balance or whatever. So here are some of my specific, sort of my big book of grievances. The motivations in this film. Right, like for me, it's interesting. Maybe you tapped into something a bit more deeper, underlying for the Skeet Ulrich character Mason. But for me, it was like neither of them had any real personal motivation to complete this mission. It was like that classic thing. The scientist stumbles in. Oh, you've got to do, just crashes into their lives. Inner Space kind of does something similar to that. A movie I love. Where it's like the scientist crashes in and gives it to gives the thing to a random person, and then he's like propelled on the adventure. But it just felt like neither of them had a motivation that was particularly strong to take such personal risks. Neither of them were remotely qualified for a mission of this kind, which could make that really fun because they're like every people, but they didn't really do anything with that. The logic of it was crazy, where it was like, there's so many points where they could have just called for help. And like there's a scene where Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character, Arlo, ransacks his old boss's office looking for another vehicle instead of simply calling. So he has time then to, like, you're not in a dead zone for no cell service. There is a phone right there. You could call somebody and be like, hey, we're in this situation. We need police support, like an escort. You could have done things. This is what I love about Speed, is that all the characters are so smart. Like, oh shit, what do we do? And they're thinking on the fly, like, go to the airport, get a police escort to clear traffic for us. And it doesn't work against the excitement of the film. It actually works in its favor because the characters aren't acting in ways that are stupid or against the purpose of what they're ultimately trying to achieve. Like the way they go about it is like so inept, but not in a fun way, in a way that's like frustrating to watch because you feel like they're making stupid choices but they're not comedic, they're just frustrating. And the other thing that really bothered me is like the military stuff. The way that the lower ranked military personnel are like chatting to like colonels and stuff as if, hey, colonel, that's the wrong idea. Like, you're in the military structure. Like, you follow orders. You don't speak to like higher ranked officers in that way.
That's why The Rock works in that regard.
Well, yes, exactly. Because it all feels like that feels, even though The Rock, you could say under heavy scrutiny, someone might say it's absolutely ludicrous. But because all of
that sidearm, Phil.
Yeah, all of the micro details feel authentic, then it can sell an outlandish macro in cases of like The Rock and Speed. For me, it's like great outlandish macro premise, but every micro decision works against it and kind of like fucks it all up in my opinion. And that's why this movie is like so broken. And instead of it like Speed is, the whole movie's on rails heading inexorably to its destination, and this film has like got like 3 punctures, and it's just sort of skidding everywhere, and then eventually sort of sputters to a halt. That's my kind of like issue with the film. Is that defensible in your estimation with the philosophy that you would apply?
Yeah, absolutely. You make some good points. So to be clear, when I talk about like enjoying and valuing bad movies because of the way they violate conventions and flout conventions, you could get the idea that I have like a kind of oppositional defiant disorder about art, where I'm like everything like it's only good when you do what you're not supposed to do, and like just break rules for the sake of breaking rules, which is a kind of a childish mentality. And like as you point out, many of these conventions serve a purpose. So, for instance, the idea that a plot should make sense in terms of what the characters do at a given moment. Like I always think of the example of Bound, the Wachowskis' Bound, as an example of a thriller where the characters always do the smartest thing at every point, and so it ends up making it more exciting, right? Because you're not sitting there thinking, "Don't be an idiot, don't do that," right. But you're rather like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I would do," and then you're like, "Oh shit, that didn't work," right?
Wow.
When a movie is written in that way, it has that effect of making the story more immersive, more suspenseful. You get more pulled into the world of the film because you're not getting taken out of it by noticing these inconsistencies. So that's all true, and I agree with that. And I agree that the movie is not especially successful as a thriller for exactly this reason. Like it fails to build like a coherent world where you could feel a sense of impending danger and threat and like become invested in it and absorbed in it. Like it doesn't really do that, right? But my claim would be that there's like other things you can do by screwing that up, which may or may not, depending on the details, may or may not be fun or interesting, right? Again, like you could like it's not like if you just had like a thriller where everybody does stupid things the whole time and that was it, then no, that's not it. I don't want to watch that, right? But in this case, right, I would suggest that the movie is like giving both Ulrich and Cuba Gooding their own kind of arc where again they're like fuck ups at the beginning of the movie, right? They're like hiding out in this gas station in like Sealy Lake or wherever they are, and like Cuba Gooding Jr. when they becomes clear they have to go through Missoula, he makes a really big deal out of it. He's like, I'm not going to Missoula, right? Like we're again being in Missoula, we're laughing so hard at this while we're watching it, right? He's like, no way, not, and he doesn't explain why right away, right? It's like kind of left hanging, like why doesn't he want to go to Missoula? And like ultimately again, it's that he has this past there, he has this history there, and he like can't. He's like afraid of the cops. He's like afraid of seeing people from his old life, and it's like he's like in hiding from his own life, as it were, right?
By the way, that's like 8% Thelma and Louise DNA, where
totally.
she won't go through Texas because of like her past and like legalities in that state or things like whatever it is in that movie.
That's a very good point.
Another little bit of DNA in there, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good catch. But so like if you think of the arc of the movie in terms of on the one hand Skeet Ulrich's arc and on the other hand Cuba Gooding's, right? I think it makes a lot more sense, and it becomes more coherent. So like why is Cuba Gooding Jr. like not calling the cops? Like why isn't he doing these things? Because he's seeing all of this from this perspective of his own. He sort of hasn't zoomed out yet to the global implications, and he's still sort of focused on his own struggle with like his hometown, right? And so what happens at the end of the movie is he saves Missoula, and it's really funny because they imagine there's like a hydroelectric. I don't think there's a hydroelectric dam in the entire state, right? But there's like a hydroelectric dam, and they're like, I just saved 500,000 people. The population of Missoula, 80,000 people, right? But so like he saves the day, like he saves everyone, he saves the whole town is the ultimate climax. And again, like Skeet, and he does it like, and it's in part of that is Skeet Ulrich learning to fly fish, right? So I was like, I found that the movie for me was much more appealing when I focused on the character arcs of these two fuck-ups who save the day, if that makes sense. And it sort of requires that requires a kind of flexibility as a viewer where you're like, okay, well, this isn't working as a thriller, but is there anything else about this that I might like sink my teeth into? And again, like that's not, there's many ways to watch movies, and I'm not suggesting that like there's something about my approach that's inherently superior, right? But I do like, I like what you said earlier at the very beginning of the episode where you talked about how like like every movie's a miracle. You don't want to ridicule it. You don't want to, right? There's two different ways people say that kind of thing, and I think you meant the good one. So the one that I don't like, the version of that I don't like, is the like let people enjoy things. The like, art is hard to make, therefore we should like be deferent to artists, and like we should always honor and respect their work even when we don't care for it. Which the problem that I have with that outlook is that it's like infantilizing. It's like what are like the Russo brothers babies, and they can't hear a criticism of their big movie.
Right. It's almost like a medal for participation.
Yes,
like
participation.
that type of thing.
Totally.
Yeah, it's like we're all babies here, and let's just be good at kindergarten and be nice to everybody gets a trophy. Exactly. Right. So I don't. But there's like another version of this that I do agree with, which is like, what kind of gaze do you want to have as an appreciator, as a viewer? Like, what kind of perspective do you want to cultivate? Do you want to be the like superior, snide, smartass who thinks he's better than everything, who always has the flaw to point out, who always is like tells you the thing, like what Kurt Vonnegut calls a pissant, who always like when you say, oh, I love this movie, and they're like, but it has bad writing, right? Like they're always like taking the win. Like I don't want to be that person, right? So for me, it's not that I like, my attitude is like every movie is good, I have to like every movie. It's that like I want to try to cultivate the most generous gaze that I can muster. I want to try to like try different ways of looking at something and try to find an outlook that for me it makes the artwork I'm engaging with rewarding. And sometimes I don't succeed at that. Sometimes like I walk away like oh my god, that was an abject waste of time. But like from a chill factor, it was more of like a trying to find a way to meet the movie on its own terms and accept the fact that like it's not a great thriller, right? But it is a pretty damn fun buddy movie that has a kind of satisfying emotional climax for the two characters. And it, again, like I do like the unevenness. And the other thing I like, something that we pointed out, was how it doesn't try to disguise its influences. It's like, yeah, there's like the threat is from The Rock, but you have, in order to defeat it, you have to do the speed thing, right? And like they're Thelma and Louise, but they're guys, right?
Right.
So I sort of appreciate that the movie wants you to think of these other movies. It's like it wants you to think of Speed, right? It wants you to be like, I like Speed, therefore I like this, and I kind of like I appreciate that in the sense that like so many other movies are ripping off Speed and trying to like barely disguise it, whereas I appreciate that this is like a movie that's like no, it's like Speed meets The Rock, right?
Right.
It's like the way that
pitch, right, to some
Yeah,
film.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they pitched it that way.
Totally.
And it's a great idea. It's interesting. We'll move on into the characters, but I agree with what you're saying there, because I think if you're just like, hey, a medal for participation, everyone gets a trophy, then we become idiocracy, which we're already well on our way towards, right? Where you just accept the main movies are, I'd buy that for $1. We just have a moronic culture of passively accepting slop being fed to us as a culture, which I vehemently reject, right? So this is quite a complex thing to figure out, because I tend to be pretty forgiving of I go in with thinking I want to like that. I don't want to sit down and watch any film and be like with my arms folded. I'd rather just not watch it if that's the case. So I'm just trying to sort of wrestle with the complexity of what you're proposing. I don't know, Liam, it looks like you have a thought.
I mean, I feel like part of the reason we wanted you to join us for this, Matt, is because I view the way that you write about watching as a form of active viewership. Like, it's not, I'm going to put on this movie and turn my brain off. Now, to be clear, like, that's very acceptable if people are like, I'm just going to watch this, but because that's like kind of what like most people approach art or TV or film, is they just kind of want to chill out and watch it. But I think that like, you'll do the work of like, this part of the movie isn't working for me, but maybe this part of the movie will work for me. Like, you're kind of trying to find, and I really admire this, the like, what is good about the thing that I'm watching. And I'm guessing, because I think that I was for a long time like a real shit-heel elitist about art. Like, I think I really
Me too.
felt that like there was only a few good types of movies, and they're usually Hungarian and 8 hours long and in black and white, right? And like, I credit to some extent Phil with this. And I wouldn't say that I was on my way to this. And then we started doing this podcast. And like, I gained this like real deep appreciation for like Blown Away, a movie that I was like, this movie sucks. And now I'm like, this movie fucking rules, because I've found something in it that like speaks to me. right? Or that really, I think, even if it's not intentional, the movie brings up, right? Which is a kind of like guilt about being born, being Irish in Boston. Like, you find these things that you can grasp onto that really elevate a movie. We recently did an episode on our Patreon about Red Heat. And Phil pointed out this really beautiful thing, which is like, the story of this movie is fine, but everything around the story rocks. Like the way it looks, the way it sounds, the way it's edited. And like, you can kind of selectively like ignore, oh, this element of the screenplay doesn't make sense. And to come back to this well-made Victorian play idea, I think that like, once we let go of the strictures of like, this is what makes art good, which we're taught from like or this is what makes TV or film or whatever good.
The checklist.
The checklist. Once you abandon the checklist and go like, I'm gonna be in communion, active viewership. You writing about watching To the Wonder, a movie that I really struggled with, but you write about watching it 10 times and finding something in it. And I just think that like that as one gets older in life and learns to think deeply about their relationship to even the most disposable cinema, you kind of gain this ability to healthfully watch anything and go like, hey, Demolition Man, for example, in some ways is pretty stupid, but it's also pretty fucking smart in some other ways. Yeah. And that's just kind of what I was thinking about, like in watching this film, like even the things that don't work about it, I find really interesting. Like, there's a moment early on.
I have one question about this that might just maybe cut to the core.
Yeah, please.
And then we can move on, because I wonder if it's about the film's intent, right? Like, because I like what you're saying as well. Like, who is anyone to rob someone else and say, like, chill factor as today's example. I love what you've brought out of it. I love what you've mined from it about, and some of that is culturally specific, right? And geographically specific, which we love. And the fly fishing and the metaphor of that, and the idea that he's sort of a fuck up looking for meaning, and this crazy opportunity gives him some kind of weird way to dysfunctionally try and rectify the sins of his past, or whatever it is. It's not for any one person to rob someone else of life. There's a reason I like this film, it's not for anyone else to take that away from them, right? But I think, what my biggest way I could maybe frame this thing is like, I have a huge issue with, and I can spot it a mile away, the difference between cinema and content. And to me, it's what goes behind that is the intention, right? Even if cinema is going for cinema and it fails, for me, I can forgive that. But if the intention is cynical content that is just to mollify people while they do a secondary task, and it's never intended. Yeah. It's never intended to be anything other than like putting a peg in a hole that like fills a slot, and it's not reaching for anything. Even if you fail, reach for the moon, you might hit the stars. Like, I'm all for that, even if you don't quite get there. But if you never tried to get there, if you never fucking tried to get there in the first place, fuck you. Like that I can't abide. I can't abide. Totally. I think that's where I come down on that.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I often think of it is that, like...
Why should I watch it? So if you don't even care enough to make it and go for anything, why should we watch it? That's where I get frustrated. I'm not saying that applies to this film, by the way.
Totally.
I think this movie is cinema in that case, to be honest.
It is.
Yeah.
It fails, but at least it went for something.
Yeah.
So I'm actually, the book that I'm writing now is about trash, and it's not just about film. It's also about like music and television and literature and other art forms, and about like the trash culture, which I think of as, or stipulatively define as, the culture that is sort of presumptively beneath consideration. Like, it's there, it exists, but it's not something you're supposed to actually read. It's not supposed to, you're not going to watch that movie. So the kinds of examples that I have in mind are like Lifetime movies and like pulpy romance novels, right? Like that kind of thing. And I'm part of what I'm doing is defending the idea that making this stuff actually like a pretty big part of your life is totally justifiable and extremely rewarding. But there's a danger, which is the content industry and the amount of stuff that's adjacent to what I'm talking about that is just the most cynical, the profit-oriented bullshit in existence, right? And the way that I try to think about the distinction is is between stuff that, although it's highly formulaic and disposable, the way it's sort of distributed and consumed, it's made by human hands. It reflects somebody's vision. Somebody cared about it. Somebody was expressing something with
about it. Yeah.
Right. Versus the content stuff is just the result of a money-making process. It's like somebody had a meeting and they thought they
algorithmicized or
we could make money with it.
Demographically, yeah.
Right. And now the thing is that some people can take that money-making motive and use that to open opportunities for expression. So like this is the classic, B movie director like Sam Fuller, what Scorsese calls a smuggler, right? Who's somebody who is part of like the B movie system is all about money. None of those studio executives cared about like the artistic expression of the filmmakers making B movies. But they're like, if Sam Fuller, if we can give you $10,000 and you can make a big profit on that by making a cheap movie, we'll give you $10,000 over and over and over again. And Sam Fuller used that to make great movies, right? And I think there are actually people like that in the Lifetime universe, the Lifetime ecosystem, right? And like that, there's actually that same kind of thing exists, right? So I think that's where I draw the distinction, right? So I do think that for me, Chill Factor has the feeling of a movie. Maybe nobody like had a huge ambition for it, but I definitely think that like the people who made this movie cared about it, and I think that and I think that the cast is having fun, and it doesn't feel to me like the kind of pure product that something like some of these like Gal Gadot Netflix movies feel like, right, which are just the most cynical thing possible, right? So I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I would urge like the idea that I would kind of broaden the umbrella of what might count as art as opposed to a mere content.
I wouldn't be sniffy about like if I don't believe people if a director is making a Lifetime movie and it's like, okay, this is a Lifetime movie, but we're going to make it good, and we're going to commit, and we're going to really try and make what this is and who it's intended for. We're going to try and make the best possible version of that. Then that's like great. But it's if people are like, this is a Lifetime movie, it's going to be a piece of shit, so let's just make it. To me, that's what it comes down to, like your intent, and that's where I feel like you can kind of sense it. And audiences are a lot smarter
100%.
than maybe the people who they look at people as you're just like passive consumers of this stuff and actually know. And,
I would say motive. I would say like motive rather than intent. I agree with what you're saying, but I would say motive because I think often these intention to me implies that you're explicitly thinking of it a certain way. And I think that often we overestimate the extent to which artists do have any determined intentions at all, right? In other words, they have like an idea, there's something they want to make, but they're not necessarily like so you think about like a painting where the painter will paint something and then like later it'll come to have a certain meaning. It'll be like, oh yeah, this is like a representation of war or something, right? Whereas as the painter did it, they maybe weren't thinking of it that way yet, right? So I would emphasize that like someone like Ed Wood or something probably didn't have super determinate intentions, right? But he did have his own motive, and that motive that involved a kind of like joyous love of film and a desire to make something that sort of matched his own dreams or however you want to think of it, right? And that motive is admirable, and I think that like the motives here shine through for me as being appealing 100%. And endearing. Yeah.
Well, that's a key distinction, and I appreciate you making this point and speaking so articulately.
Has anyone ever talked so seriously about the philosophy of art and Chill Factor, guys? This is what makes
that's what we
special.
do. That's what we do. Let's move on to the hero section and break down both of our two heroes here. Let's start with Cuba Gooding Jr. as Arlo. I'm just going to say, I think, seemingly, Matt, there's a lot of stuff that maybe I didn't catch that resonates with you for whatever reason. I do, look, I'm a big Cuba Gooding Jr. fan as an actor. He's done some unbelievable work. He's always very interesting to watch. I feel like in this movie, he really does he's giving energy. He is like cranked up. He is trying to make something happen. I feel like maybe it's actually, we should maybe just talk about the two of them in tandem. We can go, one by one. But I think for me, the problem is, one, he hasn't really got anything to work with in terms of the script in two ways. One, the set pieces, the scenes and situations he's in are not funny. They're not like cleverly designed. We talked about on our other show, 48 Hours of Buddy Movies on our Patreon, we talk a lot about Eddie Murphy, and how he's given the space in Beverly Hills Cop or in 48 Hours to be like, this is the scenario. You're going to go in and bullshit these contractors that this project is shut down. And they want to design, the architect wants a circular house.
You're already
right?
laughing, yeah.
It was a clever, and then you just let your star, your charismatic star, cook, because the situation you have given him is funny and has potential. So Cuba is consistently denied in this movie the opportunity to do anything, because the situations are rarely actually funny or like a tee up for him to do his thing. Secondarily, the dialogue is not funny, and I suspect he had to ad lib a lot, and some of it's okay and some of it's really bad. And the other part is his scene partner, unfortunately, is a bit of a black hole. Like everything that Cuba is creating in terms of energy, Skeet Ulrich with his acting style, which is subdued and low key, is just sort of absorbed into a vacuum. So it's like playing, trying to get a rally going in tennis, but it's just going into a void. There's nothing to work with. There's no kind of repartee. Now, I'm not saying to bash Skeet Ulrich. I like Skeet Ulrich. I like it. I love him in the Scream movies, especially the first one. And I loved how they brought him back for the kind of, the fifth one, I think it was. It was really cool. And I loved seeing him again. And his style, I think, works in that movie because he can be kind of low key. And the situation is interesting because you're like, is this guy bad or good, or how do I feel about him? And he's got this sort of low-key brooding charisma that works, but it's also part of a big ensemble. And he's got Matthew Lillard who's got a totally different acting style.
The Cuba Gooding in that scene
to bounce off of. But the movie isn't dependent on them. Neve Campbell is the lead character, and there's a big ensemble of great actors around them. And the situations are constantly suspenseful and fascinating. So he works brilliantly in that context. But in this movie, I was thinking, like, imagine if it was, say, Ryan Reynolds in this part, right? Like, you could totally see an ice cream truck driver and a sort of sarcastic shitheel who's just a loser but funny, getting an adventure. You could see that movie would work.
Adventureland Ryan Reynolds in this part. Or something like that.
But Skeet Ulrich opposite Cube, the chemistry is none. So it just is kind of dead on arrival as a buddy movie that needs chemistry. We just did Midnight Run, and that's a great example. I mean, that also is a brilliant screenplay, a brilliant structure, set pieces. Everything about that movie is a Swiss watch. But not every movie can be a Swiss watch, but at least if it's a buddy movie, there's got to be some chemistry between the two guys. So for me, those are my kind of macro thoughts on where this sort of misses the mark. But what do you guys think?
I think that's pretty fair in the sense that I think there's definitely room for improvement on the repartee, on the synergy between the two leads. I think they individually each nail certain parts of the assignment. So I love the scene where Peter Firth, the who's the terrorist, comes in and orders an iced coffee, and Skeet Ulrich is basically playing this asshole gas station attendant who he asks an iced coffee, gives him a hot coffee, make sure you pay the 50 cents.
That made me so mad. I was like, no, he wanted iced.
right. So I thought that that stuff was great, and I totally buy Skeet Ulrich as this small town loser who has a chance to make it do something big and important. But I agree with you that the comedic chemistry is not really there. And yeah, I was thinking of this could be Steven Dorff or something. I've been thinking about him because he's so funny in Righteous Gemstones.
Right.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's definitely a place where the movie has a lot of room for improvement.
Can I offer one thought where it kind of works and it reveals the possibility of a better movie? Which is at the very end of the movie when they talk to the FBI agent, the guy who never takes his sunglasses off, and they're like, well, we should probably get something out of this. And he's like, how about I don't fucking kill you? And they're like, right. That sounds like if it had let Skeet Ulrich be a little stupider and
his character's a bit bland for me.
Yeah, but when they're kind of on the same page in that moment, you're like, no, this is fun. I think when the girls come over, I'm like, you. Yeah, but to me at the same time, there's a little bit of potential of that moment. They're really on the same page, right? And like, I like how he calls him night shift, and I like these kind of elements of it. But like, and Cuba, Cuba's great, but I do think that if the movie, Skeet Ulrich is real good looking, right? Like, he's a really handsome guy. And I think sometimes that like can get in the way of an actor's ability to like let themselves loosen up.
Yeah.
Because he's not a loose actor, right?
No.
He's a very tense actor, I would say.
Yes.
And he's got that beautiful coiffed of hair in front of his face. And like, I do think sometimes like that is a way to sort of like make someone shrink instead of get like bigger and more funny. He kind of gets to be brooding. Also, they do him no favor with the like Varsity Blues backstory.
I mean,
It's
and that's
so like
such a
weighted
trope.
down.
That is such a trope, and Hurricane Heist, another movie that will do like does all this shit, right? Like,
Right.
it's although a movie I quite like, but they're like two Alabama former high school football stuff. It's just such a
very
trope,
Americana.
lazy trope, like
Right.
that they never ascended beyond where they were in high school,
Right.
And yeah, I think Skeet Ulrich probably wants to be James Dean. Right, and doesn't realize that in this movie, first of all, that's impossible because he's
There's
like
only
one
James
in a
Dean.
million, one in a trillion.
Well, almost
And-
every
and-
actor wanted to be James Dean, right?
But you
So
can't
it's-
be James Dean in this part.
No,
you
you're
have to
right.
be a fucking goofball and a dumbass and a fuck up to make it fun. Right,
Yeah.
you can't be trying to do giant in fucking Chill Factor.
I do think there's a scene though that we are forgetting. There is, to be fair, the scene where they ride the boat down the mountain, right? I think that scene does overcome all of these problems, and for a minute the movie becomes absolutely hilarious, right? And I think that the physical acting, right?
Yeah.
The physical acting of the two guys there is perfect, and they nail it.
But what I was sort of frustrated by with that, and that was like, what about the truck? I thought I was watching Die Hard on an ice cream truck.
Well,
Like,
you were actually
are
watching
we
Die
done
Hard
with
in
the
an ice
truck?
cream delivery truck.
Right,
you know?
right. Yeah, as it turned out, that was only such a short piece of the film. Do you guys have any other thoughts on our two heroes, or should we move on to the villain?
Well, one thing that's interesting to point out is that Cuba Gooding Jr. had like just won an Oscar. Right?
Yeah, he did. We were talking about it's like Pluto Nash vibes for Eddie Murphy and Dreamgirls. Like,
Yeah, totally.
he kind of went into the wilderness a little bit with his part choices.
He did do some odd stuff for a while, didn't he, Cuba? Like a
Well,
lot
so
of
is-
strange, stuff that would be
Snow
like
Day. I know you guys are huge Snow Day guys.
Well, you could see though. I do think though that's what's one of the things that's sort of funny, just at a meta level, is that you can definitely see. I think in the movie that part of the direction he got was like just kind of do like what you did in Jerry Maguire again, right? Like he does kind of play the character at the same energy level and with the same kind of line delivery from Jerry Maguire. So I think it's kind of funny that like as part of like conceptualizing this Die Hard in an ice cream truck, but also it's speed, also it's The Rock, it's Thumb in Louise, it's a river runs through it, right? Like also
it's a hodgepodge.
pluck the Cuba Gooding Jr. character from Jerry Maguire, but instead of a famous athlete, he's a truck driver from Missoula who's like hiding out, right? So
Right.
I
That's
did appreciate
at least it's
that.
specific about its crazy choices.
He is amazing in Jerry Maguire. I have
He
to
is.
say.
He
Like,
totally is.
Like I
So much
rewatched that
amazing
during the
work.
pandemic, and I was like, Jesus Christ! Like the joy, like not a lot of people. He can convey joy in a way that so few actors can. Like, and with just the way he moves his body.
I should have worn my Rod Tidwell jersey that I've got in the closet behind me. I have to bust it out in the next ad break. Let's talk
Show
about
me
the villain.
money!
Someone had to
So
do it.
good, yeah.
Someone had to do it. The villain. So now this to me is pretty interesting as a Brit. Peter Firth as Brenner.
Peter
Okay.
Finch.
Sorry, did I say no?
You said-
Hang on, no. It is
Is it-
Firth.
Oh,
Yeah.
my bad. My bad. I'm sorry. I was thinking of Colin Firth. My bad. Never mind.
Yeah, Peter Firth. I actually think he's good. I actually do think he's good. Now, I will say I thought his accent was good, but obviously I'm not American, right? So my ear isn't going to be quite as attuned. I
Sounds
am
like
also
Pinhead. to
okay.
me.
Okay.
Very. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't buy it. The second I knew he was British.
I'll just say my kind of thoughts on it, and then I'll let you guys kind of give you each of your own opinions on it. Because, look, I have no qualms with a very fine actor taking a Hollywood paycheck. Like, and that allows you to do a bunch more, like, great stage work, because he's pretty important figure in British culture. So maybe I have some a sort of patriotic defense of him on some level. I feel quite protective of him. He's a bit of a national treasure from
Yorkshire boy. I
Spooks
didn't know that.
and Equus being one of his early like huge breakthroughs. But he was in every episode of Spooks, which is a pretty beloved British television series, and of course in Hunt for Red October, which we've covered, in which he plays Putin. The character's called Putin, the KGB agent. And Alec Baldwin in his recent, my mum had just read Alec Baldwin's book, and she was saying how he was so taken with, even amongst that stacked cast in Hunt for Red October, he was so taken with his craft and expertise, especially when he was doing his speech in Russian. So I think his sort of training comes across, even though this is a Xerox of Ed Harris in The Rock, and it is a bit of law of diminishing returns. But I thought it was actually a pretty decent performance, and I think he's the most interesting character. The idea that he kind of got screwed over was really David Paymer's character's fault that this thing happened, this horrible chemical weapon accident at the beginning. And he even mentions him having moral qualms about war crimes in Vietnam, and he seems like more of a sort of thoughtful guy. It's a little bit undercooked ultimately.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I actually found look, it's nowhere near. We're nowhere near Gruber or Tommy Lee and Under Siege or any of the kind of great villains that we talked about. It's nowhere near, not by a long shot. I wouldn't say that. But for me, it was I thought it was fine. But
should they have let him be more sadistic? What do you guys think? He's just not
it could use
both
a little flavor.
dangerous. Yeah, give him more flavor, right? That's I think that's the right way to think about it. He's not dangerous enough. He has no fun. There's a moment when he's eating an ice cream sandwich. Yeah. And I was like, hell yeah. Do more of this.
Yeah, that was funny. But it was also, that was another example of that I enjoyed that moment, but I was also that speaks to the tone problem.
Yeah,
but as you're
agree.
saying, Matt, it's who cares? Maybe that's not a prerequisite to say I can't enjoy the movie. The fact that it did do that, which is completely tonally weird, some people might be like, that's what I like about it. So
no complaints about that scene, but I definitely agree with you that there's a missed opportunity in the villain a little bit, and also henchmen, that whole side of the
henchmen are just boring.
I can't even remember them. I watched it yesterday. I can't even remember what they look like or what they did.
Well, there's Vaughn, but
Right.
I only remember her because she was on Xena Warrior Princess.
Yeah, so
very
we're in the
quickly I was
hot henchwoman era now, post Drop Zone and
Shades of Die Hard with a Vengeance, but nothing nowhere near
doesn't do
right?
anywhere near enough with that. There's not enough personality there,
which just goes to show again how amazing Die Hard is. That every henchman is interesting, even if they don't say anything. They're just interesting to look at. You remember fucking Vigo the Carpathian, and you remember to get the fuck back, and you, of course
Marco,
you remember
man.
Marco, and let alone Carl and Theo and all in the goated henchmen. But it just goes to show
henchmen.
that it is how if you do it wrong, it's just so bland, and you can't pick them out of a lineup. It's just a missed opportunity. You only need one line with a well-cast actor, even if they just look good, they look cool or striking, and they can be like, oh, that guy's cool, that character's interesting. But they just, when you don't bother it's just kind of disappointing and a wasted opportunity, which I think is probably fair to say about all of the villains in this film, including the Colonel.
And the movie really, I think that we needed also a kind of secondary villain, right? In other words, we needed the sort of, so if the whole thing that's animating the story is that the U.S. military, this narratives are false, that it mistreats its soldiers, that it scapegoats good Americans, that kind of thing. I think that we needed a military guy to be I guess we have the part at the end where it's they're going to cave in the tunnel. He's like, don't do it, but it's that's part is so underdeveloped, right? There's ultimately
that other guy,
yeah. Ultimately, the Peter Firth villain villain character, he needs to be more sympathetic in the sense that we need to feel the grip of his, like we do in The Rock, right? Like in The Rock, we very much feel the grip of the critique of the military, whereas I don't think we feel that here enough.
Well, The Rock has David Morse and Tony Todd, who becomes the real villain at the end. So there's interplay amongst the villain. Obviously, it's a longer film. There's a bit more space afforded to that stuff.
Well, and also the villain's
this can't
right
make up its
in that
mind.
movie.
Yeah, and this movie can't make up its mind. I think that's the problem, because he's like a bit good and a bit bad, but like just be bad. In this movie, just be bad. You know?
Yeah, and I also think David Paymer is a very sympathetic actor just to look at.
Yes.
And so to like
he's
I love
empathetic.
David Paymer.
Yes,
yeah, I love him. And so to see him kind of like, he's not the bad guy, he just made a mistake. Like, I can't get over the fact that I like don't think this guy fucked up, even though he very clearly did, because I'm so sympathetic to David Paymer as an actor.
Yeah, that's very true. Because he's almost sort of miscast in a way, because he's really good at the sympathetic scientist stuff, but then when he's kind of a prick and a bastard at the beginning. So with both of the characters, it's like trying to make them dimensional, but instead with a film that is this kind of like, just do what it says on the tin. Don't you know what I mean? It's sort of like it's neither fish nor fowl. You know,
there's an easy solution, which is a secondary villain who is like at the beginning of the movie it's like telling David Paymer's conscience is troubling him, and the secondary villain is telling David Paymer like, no, just do it, and then that guy reappears at the end. Like it's such an easy thing to do
Well, to that point, I felt that the other guy, that the other colonel, that is the sort of good guy who comes in, who's like leading the Ranger unit, like that was another missed opportunity to have him in the first act, have them have some kind of dynamic that's interesting.
That's a huge problem. I totally agree
because
with
that character again is just such a sketch of a character, and the actor is kind of like feels like a good TV actor, but not. You want fucking Scott Glenn in that part, man. Like you want someone that's like coming in, like guy. You know, but you need someone that's like got more about them for that part.
Michael Ironside, you know, something like that.
Fuck yeah.
Oh, shit. Right. Oh my God! Imagine if Michael Ironside showed up 71
and
minutes
then Ironside
into
doing that speech at the end where he's like, "How about I don't like send you to you know, a prison for treason?" And you're like, but he gives him a little like wink, you know,
something like that, right? Totally missed opportunity, another missed opportunity. You know, So I agree with most of what you're saying. I just think like the movie, a lot of the framing doesn't work. Like for me again, like what I keep coming back to that I do like is the two losers like saving the day. That sort of plot of the movie is what I cling to when I.
That's cool, and I like that as like as a prism through which to see this film. I think that's very kind of endearing, and you know, that's cool. Let's talk about it on the action level, because we are going quite long on 1999's chill factor. I don't know how we managed to do it, but somehow
because we're talking about art. Phil.
Yes.
We're going deeper than
what
that.
What more important quest could there be in life? The action of this film, I'll tell you something I had a problem. Okay, there's this initial chase, right? We're sort of discussing this film, how it succeeds or fails on an action level. There's the initial chase when the motorcycles show up, and when the premise finally kicks in and they're in the ice cream truck on the freeway. What really bothered me, though, is like, okay, so to your point, these are two normal everyman characters. 5 minutes ago, it's a short order cook and an ice cream delivery truck guy. The motorcycles come after them, and I think Cuba makes a move to kill one of them, and he goes, "Woo!" And you're just like, chill out. No pun intended. If you'll pardon the pun. Chill the fuck out, man. You are a normal human being 2 seconds ago, and you're killing people, and you're like, woo! And he does that a lot, and it's like, whoa, we are lost here, people.
Show me the money.
Even Jack Traven isn't doing that, and he's like an elite SWAT cop. He's not a fucking ice cream truck delivery driver. This is a serious situation, man. But Speed still has. It's not to say that Speed still has so much fun, you know, and yet the characters don't act like that. So for me, a lot of the action was actually encapsulated the tonal problems that I couldn't get past. You know, although I can appreciate why people would. The finale is what, by the way, more DNA is Daylight.
Yeah, total Daylight. It's a total Daylight movie. Not a Jesus movie
for
like
for
Daylight,
a moment when
the
helicopter showed up, I did get a little Philly special twitch, but it didn't quite.
There's also a little Broken Arrow in it too, right?
Yes,
in that sequence.
definitely.
And, yeah, for sure. Just like blowing up the. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. I mean, look, I wasn't particularly enthused or excited by the action. I do kind of think the boat part is maybe the standout moment of the movie because it's just so silly and fun. And like I think to Matt's point, if it had leaned into that a little more, it would work better.
Do you have any thoughts on it, Matt, as an action picture? Like, does it succeed or fail for you on an action level?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's a lot of. I think that the high points are the boat, and then there's some good stuff at the end with like caving in the tunnel. It's kind of cool, at least. I do think there's a lot of missed opportunities there. Like the chases are not particularly memorable. There's not a lot of like. There's not a lot that's there's not a lot of creativity in the composition of the set pieces other than the boat, which I really loved. I really loved the whole everything about it. The whole boat ride down the mountain for me was a big win.
It kind of reminded me of that clip that Paul Rudd loves to play on Conan from Mac and Me of the guy going down the hill in the wheelchair. Like it's just so like 80s cuckoo, right? Yeah. Like it's really a bizarre tonal choice, but it's like there are shades of a movie that works better in that moment.
Right. Well, and like, how did they do this? Like, how exactly did we film this? Right. Like, what exactly?
Yeah.
Like, this? Like, I still am not totally sure how that was done. Right?
Yeah. Maybe it'll be on the 4K.
It's a little bit narrow margin, actually, that bit as well.
Jeez.
I mean, we're getting so much sticking
By the end of this, we're like, actually, is chill factor amazing?
I would say I'm not quite there yet, but you never know. There's still a little bit of time left. Our last section is the humor, our last tenet. I mean, I have to say, apart from that one bit where Peter Firth ate an ice cream, I did not find any of this funny. That which was another just missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
There's no jokes in the film. Maybe there's like two bits in the trailer that were like Cuba's delivery made it funny, where he was there's some like someone calls him and threatens him, and he hands him the phone and goes, "It's for you." You know, there's a couple of bits like that. But for the most part, I find it very forced. What do you guys feel about am I missing something? Am I just a real stuck in the mud here about this movie?
How can we ever hope to win against the Trout? I have to say, I like, fair enough. A lot of the stuff I was laughing at wasn't sort of funny in a way that's general, but it was funny to me as a person who lives in Missoula and fly fishes, right? Again, like, so a lot of the idea, like we're obviously in Moab, and we pull up to a sign that says Missoula, take a left, and to go to Helena or Billings, take a right, and we're like in Moab. I'm laughing hysterically at that, right? So I have to see why if you don't live in Missoula or Helena, like that's not as funny.
That's so funny.
We were laughing so hard at that.
I was in Moab 3 weeks ago, and I was like, that looks like Moab. Right. Yeah, I think you should start your fall lectures with the "How can we ever hope to win against the Trout?" as the first question that you pose to the students, but then never explain it. Like, never talk about it again, because it feels very stupid fake professor to do that. No, it's not very funny. But Cuba, I still give Cuba credit for trying.
Yes, I agree. Well, let's put on our we'll take off our fly fishing gear and put on our tuxedos as we head over to the Die Hard Oscars. The first award is the John McClane Yippee-Ki-Yay Award for Best Line. I have to say it was slim pickings.
I love slim pickings.
I've got I'm going to slap the red off your neck, says Cuba to an utterly miscast Skeet Ulrich. Does he give redneck?
No, not at all. He's
way too sexy.
Yeah, he is way too sexy. He's way too good looking, and like, where is he even from? Like, that's my
feels
question.
More kind of Midwestern, like, I don't know.
I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, maybe he's a California lad.
For me, I mean, the obvious winner is how could we ever hope to win against the Trout?
Of course.
You and the fucking Trout, man.
I also really did appreciate
we get it.
I really did appreciate, again, this depends in part on being a Missoulian, but I really did appreciate the, like, Missoula's prodigal son returns. When Cuba, because after the whole movie where he's like, I don't want to go to Missoula, I'm not going to Missoula, and then it's like, the prodigal son returns. I had to laugh at that. That definitely got both my wife as well was extremely amused by that. It's like,
That is-
I don't know if there's not very many movies where Missoula comes up as much as it does in this, nor where like the climax is like, can we save Missoula? So I was laughing a lot at that. I mean, it's funny. The last movie I saw where Missoula comes up was, if you saw The Order, the white.
Yes.
I love The Order.
Great movie.
They go to Missoula to buy assault rifles, right?
that's right.
That's like the kind of level that Missoula usually comes up in a movie, is like something like that, or like in Deadwood, it's like where, you know, like where we're coming from. But yeah, so for me, I did get a lot of enjoyment out of the like Montana references.
Right.
Missoula's prodigal son returns.
I got two more lines to suggest. Vaughn says, "Don't worry, I'm a professional. This won't hurt a bit." To which Mason clips, "Well, I'm an amateur. This is going to hurt like hell."
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Bad. A base hit.
That's pretty good.
Base
That's
hit.
like you're you're the Rocket Man. Kind of,
yeah. It does the job. And then the last one, speaking of now, here's where we're really going to crack this movie open. Tim Mason, played by Skeet Ulrich, at the end says, "Patriotism is its own reward." Something to think about. We did an
How can
entire,
we ever hope to win against the Trout? Is my question.
We did 2 hours on how The Rock is essentially about different people's interpretations of patriotism. Is chill factor the same thing?
Nope.
It isn't.
Moving on.
Okay, yeah,
I'm going to give it to the
down.
Trout line.
Shut it down.
Matt's really convinced me. It's the Trout line.
Okay, the Trout
Skeet
line
Ulrich
wins.
is from Lynchburg, Virginia.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. Thank you for clarifying
Do with that as you will.
Thanks for our interns for going and digging out that information.
That was me. I'm not giving them credit.
The Hans Gruber Exceptional Thief Award for stealing the film. The nominees are Peter Firth as Colonel Andrew Brinner, David Paymer as Dr. Richard Long, Kevin J. O'Connor in the house as Telstar, and Daniel Hugh Kelly as Colonel Leo Vitelli. He was the good guy, Colonel.
It's Paymer all the way. I wish he was in it more.
Yeah.
I wish it is Paymer
That's
all
fair.
the way. And I just want to. I love Kevin J. O'Connor. I love him, and I think he's great.
He was a
So-
bit wasted in it. Is it just a
He also
small
lights a
part?
cigarette in the least convincing way possible, and I was like, "This movie isn't good." Just based on the, I hate the kind of like in movies. I know we're going long here, but I hate in movies when it's like, "Let me just light this cigarette because I have nothing else to do in this scene." Like
Right.
it's very unconvincing to me. Not as but not even
It's
that
like
like someone
filling
would
dead
smoke.
space.
Filling dead space,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Lighting
yeah,
a cigarette to only be killed 10 seconds later is when we don't know what else to do with our character. And
Yeah.
the fact that it happens in the first like 3 minutes of the movie is a problem.
Yep, fair. So we're all going with Paymer. The Dick Thornburg Award for Dick of the Movie. I've got Jim Grimshaw as Deputy Pappas.
All the way. Oh,
Yeah. Don't. There's
Pappas.
nobody else.
It's
Yeah,
a great
all
name
right,
to the
we'll
character
waste
also.
Too much time. I will say that I think
Boo.
Skeet Ulrich's character Mason, his backstory, his backstory, well, I drove into a ditch and I ruined my best friend's chances of an NFL career after he was just drafted, maybe while drunk, which isn't specified but is heavily implied. I'm like,
Yeah, he's
maybe
like, I've been
you
drinking all night,
suck.
but it's probably fine.
Maybe you're a
He
terrible
should have been the
fucking
guy in the
person.
passenger seat. Like that guy's backstory should have been his backstory.
Yeah. It just
Anyway.
I'm like, that's pretty bad, dude.
Yeah, you're not a
maybe
nice
you should feel
person.
bad.
Yeah.
And then also David Paymer as Dr. Richard Long for inventing Elvis in the first place. Did you enjoy his Oppenheimer-esque moment? I am death, destroyer of worlds.
God.
I forgot about that. That was amazing, by the way. Yeah.
I'm
It's just
sure
like,
Christopher
don't do
Nolan
that.
saw this
Don't
and was
do
like,
that.
wait a minute. I'm going to put this awkwardly in a sex scene years later.
Is Chill Factor an Oppenheimer prequel?
No, Oppenheimer is a prequel to Tenet. Never mind. Anyways.
All right, our final award. He's back by popular demand. It's Best Death, presented by Marco.
Number table! Next time you have a chance to kill someone, don't hesitate. Oh, it feels good. I haven't done it in a long time. Sorry if I blew your ears out, guys.
Bust it out. So I've got 4. Cuba Gooding Jr. killing the first motorcyclist by forcing him to smash into a logging truck.
That shit rocked. I'm not going to lie. That fucking rocked, dude. That was good.
He's actually a psychopath, the character. Right. Cuba killing another mercenary on the roof of the truck by forcing him to hit a massive rock. Cuba
that was good too.
Ramming into a mercenary who abseils down from the rocks, which is actually inexplicable if you look at the geography of the scene and how it's staged.
Okay, relax.
And Peter Firth's Cronenbergian demise at the end. That actually really disturbed me.
It's gross.
Yeah, I was like, this is kind of a fun movie, and then it was like, oh, you're doing that? Like, I don't want that in my head, to be honest. It was pretty rough.
That moment got interrupted by Tubi ads for me. So he was like half exploding, and then it went through like 8 ads, and I like got up and peed and was like,
That's why we need physical media.
4K of chill factor when.
Thoughts, moans, groans, worries, picks.
I did think that the scene where the guy stands up in the truck and gets taken out by the rock, that did have a very good wince factor. But the special effects on the body melt at the end were like kind of surprisingly good. So I have to give the win to the body melt, just because it's like, it's true. It is that kind of tonal jagginess that I was saying that I liked about it. Like the effect of like this is like kind of a fun, happy ending.
I'm
and
with you.
we melted the bad guy.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, no, that's good. That is actually a really good point. I kind of wish that those like Cuba Gooding Jr. murders were like almost accidental. Like that would work better if he was like, whoa, and he lost control of the truck and it kills like almost an Indiana Jones style.
It makes him a maniac.
Right, yeah, he's a fucking psycho.
All right, let's take one last break and then we'll wrap things up with the Double Jeopardy trivia quiz where the scores can really change.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
This is Paige DeSorbo, the co-host of Giggly Squad. I have exciting news. McDonald's has all new McCrispy strips. It's chicken made for dipping. Tender, juicy white meat chicken with a golden brown, peppery breading. It's chicken so good it deserves its own sauce. The creamy chili McCrispy strip dip, a sauce that's creamy, savory, and sweet with a little heat. But it works with any of our sauces. I'm personally a barbecue sauce girl. Even sometimes I like ketchup. I'm just like basic sometimes. But I also need it in addition to any new sauces I'm trying. With a new creamy chili McCrispy strip dip, it's chicken made for dipping, only at McDonald's.
And we're back with our final section of the show, the Double Jeopardy trivia quiz. So hopefully you guys know the deal by now. There's going to be 3 quick quiz questions, and you guys can collaborate on the answers. You get 1 clue each. You can phone a friend, a.k.a. you can radio Al Powell. Question number 1. Chill Factor's 2 stars, Cuba Gooding Jr. and Skeet Ulrich, previously appeared together in which Oscar-winning film?
Matt, do you know?
I mean, I've got to...
You go for it.
I mean, is Skeet Ulrich and Jerry Maguire?
He is not.
The film is as good as it gets.
Is correct.
Oh, I did not.
Skeet actually very good in his one scene in that movie.
Plays a
he is
Brad Pitt obsessed gay hustler who
beats the shit out of
Greg Kinnear, right?
Right, that's right. I haven't watched it. I love that movie. I haven't watched it. I watched it a few years ago, but I did not remember that Skeet Ulrich was in that.
Question number 2. In which Die Hard on a Blank film, previously covered on this podcast, does Cuba Gooding Jr. make a blink and you'll miss it uncredited appearance as Bomb Squad class member?
No, this is hard.
Blown away.
Not for Liam Billy.
Not hard for
He's
me,
watched
baby.
it 200 times.
Stephen Hopkins talks about how he was supposed to have a larger part in that movie, and it just
No shit.
Yeah, he was going to be in more scenes and stuff like that. But like he kind of just did it as a favor. He's like, yeah, because they'd done Judgment Day together.
Oh, that's right.
So
yes,
they were
Judgment
friends.
Night. Yeah.
Judgment Night.
Got
Excuse me. Judgment Night. Yeah, Judgment Day is the prequel to Judgment Night. It's just not as many people have seen it.
Yeah. I actually haven't seen Blown Away since I was a kid, but it just came out on 4K, so I have it in my crosshairs.
The 4K is great, and the Stephen Hopkins commentary track is like, I watched it wearing these, and he has such like a nice voice. It's like, totally pick it up. That movie rocks, man.
It's on my
got
list.
problems, but in the best way. It has problems.
It's on my list.
Our episode about it will be revealing. You should check it out.
Nice.
Question number 3, final question. It's not convoluted corner, I'm afraid.
Corner.
Cuba Gooding Jr. and Peter Firth were both cast members in which bombastic Michael Bay joint?
Matt, you know?
I'm thinking.
Okay, take your time.
Is it?
We can phone a
Pearl
friend
Harbor?
if you want.
Is it Pearl Harbor?
Yes, it is. Bravo.
I haven't revisited that since I saw it in the movie theater.
I saw it once, rented it, and I didn't think
Cuba's
it was that
good
bad.
in it.
I've always thought of it as the worst Michael Bay movie, and I might be totally wrong because it's like it's the one movie that I haven't revisited. The point where I converted to Michael Bay fandom was the fourth Transformers movie, was where I was like, okay, now I like Michael Bay.
That was great.
That was the one that won me over.
I haven't seen anything except for the first one. I've never done the Transformers deep dive.
I think that the best ones are the third and fourth one, and then the third, fourth, and fifth ones are great. I think so. Totally worth it. But the fourth one, I went to see it because it was getting such terrible reviews, and people were like, "It's so long, it's so loud, it's 3 hours long, and it's like having your head beaten up by a baseball bat the entire time." And I'm like, that sounds like something I should go see.
I frame it like this. Stanley Tucci and Kelsey Grammer are in an amazing stage play in which Transformers are happening in the background. That's why I love that movie.
I'm gonna go buy it right now.
What I would also add is that like Transformers 4 is like in a way the most forceful refutation of the sort of conservative stance on immigration. It's like it positions the Transformers as the undocumented immigrants, right? In the movie, they're like exploited and persecuted. It's actually like by far the wokest Michael Bay movie, like by a very large margin.
Ambulance, pretty woke.
I would say that it is woker than Ambulance.
Woker than Ambulance. It is Matt Strohl.
Yes.
All right. Just to cap that off, Firth played the captain of the West Virginia, and Cuba played Dory Miller in Pearl Harbor. That does it for today's show. Thank you so much for coming here, Matt. Where can people find you? Tell us what you've got going on. Tell us about your books, the ones that you've written and the ones that you have coming, and anything that you want to say.
Absolutely. I am at Strohltopia on Twitter. That's STROHL Topia. I'm on Letterboxd under my name, Matt Strohl, or Matt Strohl 99, I think is the @. And then the books. So the first book is Why It's Okay to Love Bad Movies. That's kind of a half academic book. But it's meant for a general reader. It's meant to be fun. And then the other book, more recent, is called Hard to Watch, and that's about difficulty in film, and it's about coping with like all the like living in a distracted world, like living in the world of the algorithm and the streaming, and trying to like maintain a cinephilia lifestyle with all those things pulling you away. And then the third book, which I'm working on now, is going to be called the working title is The Trash Collector. So that look for that one probably like fall of 2026. I would think that'll hopefully be out.
Great titles, by the way.
Yeah,
Love
and just as a personal recommendation, like Hard to Watch is like a real revelation. Like if you're serious about like watching and I don't want to say the word consuming, but if you're serious about engaging with art, all different types of art, like it really helped me think about like how and why and when I consume and watch and engage with art. And I just think they're part of why I wanted to have you on, Matt, because the book is amazing.
Thanks for saying that. It's a very personal book to me, so it's very gratifying to hear that you got something out of it.
Yeah, I really am, and I love it. So,
well, thank you so much, Matt. And we'll let you get out of here and get back to your fly fishing in Montana and get at those trout.
Absolutely. I don't know how to defeat them.
Who does?
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Matt Strohl.
Thank you to the professor of bad movies, and why they're actually good.
Matt, I'm buying professorofbadmovies.com.
Has he converted us on this movie? Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit.
I think what he has done is convinced us that like that art has meaning no matter what you might think of it.
Yeah.
Which maybe seems trite, but I think it's true. I think, we're very quick to be like, that sucks. And this movie does kind of suck, but like it's not for lack of trying.
Yeah. And there is stuff in it that I hadn't seen that he picked up on. So that was great. Rate, review, subscribe.
This is your bit. I don't know why.
No, it's your bit. It's both of our bits.
It's both of our bits.
We had
nice.
some nice reviews, didn't we, recently? And thank you for the good folks that took the time out of their busy day to do that. It really helps. It really makes a big difference. And if you write us a nice review, a nice 5-star review, we will read it on the show. So please do that.
The show, absolutely.
Yep, subscribe, tell a friend. Find us on social media, but we're not. The better place to find us, honestly, to actually have like nice interactions is our
At
Patreon.
Our house. Here's our address. No, please go to our Patreon, www.patreon.com/48. That's 48 hours of buddy movies. $5 a month gets you 2 episodes a month. $7 gets you those episodes, plus we say your name on the podcast.
Give you a whole shout out, as we did with my good friend Malcolm, who's also a Montana native.
Oh my goodness.
So it's all roads lead back to Montana.
We should have an academic panel on the veracity of Montana's representation in the film Chill Factor.
Yeah, so join us for our all our stuff going on at 48 Hours of Buddy Movies. We essentially do the same thing that we do here about Die Hard's influence, about 48 Hours influence on the buddy movie genre. And the next movie that we'll be doing, we've done now, I think, 12, 13?
Something like that.
We've done the Beverly Hills Cop movies. We've done Lethal Weapon. We've done Red Heat. We've just done Midnight Run. And the next movie that we're doing is Alien Nation.
Whoa.
Starring James Caan and Mandy Patinkin and Terrence Stamp. A fascinating movie with one of the all-time great concepts. A movie that I love, very, very interesting. Also, I was also a fan of the TV show, which was excellent. So we will be getting into that one. And then speaking of Elvis, the name of the chemical weapon in this movie, next week on this show, we will be discussing 3,000 Miles to Graceland. Is it 3,000? Is it 3,000 miles to or from?
No, 3,000 miles to.
It is 3,000, because I've written from Graceland, but I thought that was wrong, right? It's 3,000 miles to Graceland. A movie that I love that has some questionable taste issues that we will be passing through.
But in a delightful way.
Indeed.
I don't know, that was a very good.
Indeed.
We'll be back next time with Elvis again, but in a very different form.
Bye, guys.
Die Hard on a Blank is a podcast from Philip Gothorn and Liam Billingham. Tyson Hubley makes our art. You can hear exclusive episodes of our Patreon show at patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies. Rate, review, subscribe, and tell your action movie loving friends about the show. See you next time on Die Hard on a Blank.
This is Paige, the co-host of Giggly Squad. I use Uber Eats for everything, and I feel like people forget that you can truly order anything, especially living in New York City. It's why I love it. You can get Chinese food at any time of night, but it's not just for food. I order from CVS all the time. I'm always ordering from the grocery store. If a friend stops over, I have to order champagne. I also have this thing that whenever I travel, if I'm ever in a hotel room, I never feel like I'm missing something because I'll just Uber Eats it. The amount of times I've had to Uber Eats hair items like hairspray, deodorant, you name it, I've ordered it on Uber Eats. You can get grocery, alcohol, everyday essentials in addition to restaurants and food you love. So in other words, get almost anything with Uber Eats. Order now. For alcohol, you must be legal drinking age. Please enjoy responsibly. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Every idea starts with a problem. Warby Parker's was simple. Glasses are too expensive. So they set out to change that. By designing glasses in-house and selling directly to customers, they're able to offer prescription eyewear that's expertly crafted and unexpectedly affordable. Warby Parker glasses are made from premium materials like impact-resistant polycarbonate and custom acetate. And they start at just $95, including prescription lenses. Get glasses made from the good stuff. Stop by a Warby Parker store near you.
In honor of Military Appreciation Month, Verizon thought of a lot of different ways we could show our appreciation, like rolling out the red carpet, giving you your own personal marching band, or throwing a bumping shindig. At Verizon, we're doing all that in the form of special military offers. That's why, this month only, we're giving military and veteran families a $200 Verizon gift card and a phone on us with a select trade-in and a new line on select unlimited plans. Think of it as our way of flying a squadron of jets overhead while launching fireworks. Now that's what we call a celebration, because we're proud to serve you. Visit your local Verizon store to learn more. $200 Verizon gift card requires smartphone purchase $799.99 or more with new line on eligible plan. Gift card sent within 8 weeks after receipt of claim. Phone offer requires $799.99 purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate or Postpaid Unlimited Plus. Minimum plan $80 a month with autopay plus taxes and fees for 36 months. Less $800 trade-in or promo credit applied over 36 months. 0% APR. Trade-in must be from Apple, Google, or Samsung. Trade-in and additional terms apply.
Hi guys, it's Phil
And Liam.
from Die Hard on a Blank, and we're excited to talk to you about a brand new podcast we're launching called 48 Hours of Buddy Movies.
That's right, folks. 48-hour-long
Approximately.
episodes exploring 48 different buddy movies, beginning with the original classic that started it all, Walter Hill's 1982 masterpiece, 48 Hours, starring Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy.
And just like Die Hard on a Blank, our new show will explore the influence of 48 Hours on the action genre, one buddy movie at a time.
We'll be covering iconic franchises such as the Beverly Hills Cop movies, the Stakeout movies, the Bad Boys movies, classics of the genre like Running Scared,
Hyams Hive Rise Up,
Midnight Run, Red Heat, Tango and Cash, The Hard Way,
plus tough thrillers such as To Live and Die in LA, Black Rain, Point Break, Training Day, and The Way of the Gun.
as well as a few wild cards that you might not expect, such as RoboCop, Alien Nation, and, of course, Phil's favorite,
Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man.
So if you're a fan of two buddies talking buddy movies,
Then 48 Hours of Buddy Movies is for you.
visit patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies to subscribe for the price of 1 cup of coffee a month.
See you in the squad car.
Or walking to the squad car, mildly irritated that we've been paired off.
Wherever. That's patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies to subscribe.